As Israeli airstrikes intensify on Lebanon, several European countries have voiced strong objections, sharply criticizing Israel's military tactics and the devastating consequences for civilians and UN peacekeepers. Let us examine Europe's shifting stance on the conflict and explore the reasons behind their criticism and whether this marks a turning point in Europe's long-standing relations with Israel.
Since the onset of Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon, several European nations, including France, Germany and the UK, have issued strong condemnations of Israel's military campaign. Their criticism stems from mounting civilian casualties, widespread infrastructure damage, and the alarming targeting of UN peacekeeping forces in the region. France, a longtime ally of Lebanon, spearheaded diplomatic efforts urging Israel to de-escalate the conflict and adhere to international law. Meanwhile, the UK and Germany voiced concerns over the growing humanitarian crisis, with Germany making a direct call for an immediate halt to hostilities. In defense of its action, Israel framed the airstrikes as necessary measures of self-defense. Insisting that they were aimed at dismantling Hezbollah's military infrastructure, Israeli officials dismissed the European criticism as biased, emphasizing the existential threat posed by Hezbollah, a militant group. They accuse of using southern Lebanon as a base for attacks Israeli territory. The situation became particularly fraught with the targeting of UNIFIL, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, peacekeeping positions, heightening diplomatic tensions. Israel has maintained that Hezbollah strategically uses their positions as shields for their operations, while critics argue that Israel deliberately strikes UN forces to limit their ability to monitor military activities on the ground. The bombardment of these forces has only fueled international outcry. Although European nations continue to support a two-state solution in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there is a growing discomfort over Israel's military tactics in Lebanon. The recent wave of criticism suggests a potential shift in diplomatic dynamics, as European leaders increasingly call for a more balanced approach to achieving peace in the Middle East. This evolution signals that while support for Israel remains intact, there may be a recalibration in how Europe engages with the conflict moving forward.
Now, the Guardian newspaper has reported that Britain, Italy, France and Germany have condemned Israeli attacks on the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Lebanon, declaring them contrary to international humanitarian law. In a joint statement, the four nations emphasized the critical stabilizing role of UNIFIL in southern Lebanon and insisted on the need for Israel to ensure the safety of peacekeepers. Recent Israeli attacks have resulted in injuries to strong concern, urging all parties to respect the mission's safety. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied targeting peacekeepers intentionally, but reiterated calls for their withdrawal from combat zones, a request that the UN peacekeeping chief rejected, affirming that UNIFIL would remain in place.